Polipede works here. So in chapter 1065, we are introduced to Vegapunk York, who is the embodiment of greed. We see that she can eat large amount of food, and the energy of that food is transferred to the other 6 bodies of Vegapunk. As well, she can also relieve them of any need to defecate by defecating herself, which is a very funny meme, admittedly. Now, you know what's very interesting about her and the events that happened in this chapter? We're also introduced to Seraphim Jinbei, who is named S-Shark, and he has, from some means, the essence of the swim fruit. We know that there is a possibility that Vegapunk can extract the essence of a devil fruit without really affecting the user. We see this in small terms with all the laser usage from Pacifistas to Frankie to the Seraphim now. Also, we know that he can extract essence and make devil fruits kind of in a wholesale sort of way, as he does with Momonosuke's fruit. As Momonosuke, for all intents and purposes, is just Kaido. The only difference between him and Kaido is the color of their dragons. His is pink, Kaido's is blue, which I guess is the reason why Vegapunk deemed Momo's fruit at the time as a failure, because the name of the fruit is literally the color of the dragon. So, what am I getting at with this? A very important discovery was made during the pre-time skip and has trickled down into the post-time skip kind of sneakily. The invention of Wapol metal. If you do not know, Wapol metal was discovered during Wapol's cover story called the Omnivorous Hurrah. In that cover story, Wapol bums around, he becomes various things. He then starts selling toys under a bridge as he is destitute, and these toys are actually made up of a particular alloy. This alloy is created by him sort of just munching things up and spitting them out, as he's known to do, because during the whole Drum Island arc, of course, he was combining things, he was melding things in his body and all that sort of stuff, right? What's very interesting about Wapol metal is I don't think it's stated enough as to how big of a deal it is, because later on in the post-time skip, it is discovered that General Frankie, his ace weapon, right, is made of Wapol metal. Anytime Wapol metal is mentioned, it's called a memory shape alloy. So the General Frankie's components are both made up of a memory shape alloy, aka Wapol metal. So anytime you hear the term memory shape alloy, it relates to Wapol metal. The Germa 66 raid suits are also said to be made up of a memory shape alloy in chapter 869. They're also fireproof. This brings me back to York. Now, in order for Frankie to have had the means to even cultivate the General Frankie, had to be during the 2-year time skip. He found the blueprints or the means to work with Wapol metal within Vegapunk's old lab. Somehow, some way. Which I can kind of believe based on perhaps news just spreading about Wapol metal worldwide, right? And we know sort of recent things might have trickled down into the old lab because the laser technology was presented as being something fairly new as it was put into the Pacifistas, and those schematics too, most likely, were at Vegapunk's lab. So he must have moved from his hometown to Egghead fairly recently, or he moves back and forth. What I'm getting at is somewhere along the line, perhaps, just like with Kaido, and maybe just like with Senior Pink, Vegapunk has personally met Wapol. In meeting Wapol, he has been able to extract the essence of the Munch-Munch fruit from Wapol and then gave that essence, or put that essence in a fruit and gave it to York. Because this is kind of based on assumptions and a lot of headcanon stuff, but seeing as how York is number 6, I'm going to take a stab in the dark and assume that she is the youngest of the Vegapunk bodies. Her and Atlas, because they are 5 and 6 respectively, right? So Vegapunk York being the youngest one means this might have been a recent development, or within the 2-year time skip she could have been created by Vegapunk. Based on how the Vegapunks interact with one another, it's kind of unclear how much they share between each body. The only thing that is for sure is that York, and York specifically, her function is spread out between all bodies as far as we know. All bodies benefit from her eating. All bodies benefit from her defecating. At least that's what's implied. No one really benefits from Lilith being evil, or Edison's thinking, or Pythagoras' number crunching. Not really. And even in chapter 1065, it's very evident that in their embodiments, all Vegapunks, except for York, really kind of work independently on their own accord. Atlas, I'm assuming based on her showing that she had some invention and she was actually punching the holograms with, she's kind of the field test girl. Lilith is perhaps the accountant or treasurer of some sort, because she's very money and material focused. Edison and Pythagoras are the idea makers, as is potentially Shaka, and of course the main Vegapunk. So you have the four presumably male figures of the Vegapunk 7 being sort of like the thinkers and the studiers, whereas the females of the Vegapunk 7 are more sort of like the people who keep things afloat, keep things running, and keep all Vegapunks healthy. So, in having the essence of the Munch-Munch fruit, perhaps instead of being a feast for one, it has the ability for one to feast for all, because we don't exactly know what the awakening of the Munch-Munch fruit is. Presumably, since York has the Munch-Munch fruit, her stomach can then connect to the stomachs of the other Vegapunks, either through relation or perhaps through the awakening ability of the Munch-Munch fruit. So let's say when she eats, all the processes of her eating, she takes on the brunt of the calories, but then she can then distribute those calories to anyone she wishes. And then in terms of feedback, she can then actually take on the duty of relieving waste for anyone she's connected to. Because, and this is kind of gross, but it's true, so far the Munch-Munch fruit is the only ability that has a sort of relation to defecating, because the theme of the Munch-Munch fruit is that anything you eat will be extracted within 24 hours of you eating it. So I could potentially see that's her whole setup. She eats a whole lot of food, distributes that food to the other Vegapunks, and then relieves any waste on their behalf. And that's sort of like her function as an awakened Munch-Munch fruit user. Also, on the business side of things, it would make more sense for her to mass produce Wapo metal, specifically for the use of Vegapunk's inventions, seeing as how Vegapunk has some money troubles in terms of funding research. So it would make more sense if he just has someone on hand who can make simply endless supplies of Wapo metal whenever he wishes. That's going on in the reads a little bit, but those are my thoughts. Tell me what you think, and I'll see you next time. If you like stuff like this, please feel free to check out my YouTube channel, Polipede Works. And if you like what you see, I would appreciate your subscription. Thank you so much. See you next time.